Hey guys, this is P.M.R.Bonez88, and today for my next superhero movie review that I'll be talking about today is Spider-Man 2. The returning director Sam Raimi, who is also the director of the Evil Dead trilogy, Darkman, the first Spider-Man movie, and Oz the Great and Powerful, and many more. And also with the returning cast, of course, which are Tobey Maguire, Kristen Dunst, James Franco, Rosemary Harris, and J.K. Simmons, and there's like too many cast and names, so I will just say it short. The ones who are from the first and previous Spider-Man movie, they're back too. So this second film is all about making choices. The choices they have to make, what destiny lies with them, or the sacrifices they have to give up, even the thing they really want the most so bad. So the movie starts out where Peter Parker works at as a pizza delivery. So in the pizzeria, what happens is that he tries to deliver a box of pizzas on time, but somehow he tries to get there on time, and due to all the New York traffic, he decides to take a shortcut or the fast way to swing at Spider-Man, and all of a sudden this one random guy just says, "Whoa, he stole that guy's pizza!" Seriously, that is so random. Another random person finds the whole box of pizza, takes a slice, and while Spider-Man was trying to save the kids from crossing the streets, and after he saves them, he picks up the pizza, and one guy still has the slice, but then again, sorry. No free slices for you, mister. So by the time he gets to the building, what happens is he comes out of the janitor closet and he gets there right on time, so that's what he thinks. And the lady says he's late. He was late as always. So afterwards, he goes back to work and is not so happy and just simply fires him. So the character, of course, Peter Parker, he struggles in between his normal life and his superhero life as Spider-Man. He promised Mary Jane that he would go to see her play. He's too late, and the usher, guess who? Bruce Campbell. He returns to play as an usher. In the first one, he was the ringer, and now he's an usher. So it was really messed up, and Mary Jane was really upset and very disappointed in Peter. Now, Peter lives on his own. He has his own apartment, and the introduction, which is the landlord, he's so annoying, and I hate that guy. I want to punch his face so bad. All he ever wanted is his rent, and that's all he ever cared about was his stupid rent. Was rent. Tries to get away from it, there was this one scene was really hilarious, where Peter goes downstairs and he just comes out of the bathroom saying, "Where's my money?" and he has his pants down. So the friendship between Peter and Harry goes a little ups and downs. Harry still blames Spider-Man for killing his father, and the character brings Harry downhill, and now he's all alcoholic and a scum which he is. And the family relationship between Peter and Aunt May, and unfortunately she struggles with her house payment and is overdue, so she decides to sell the house. Now during the party scene, which is also Mary Jane and John Jameson's engagement party, apparently Mary Jane is deciding to get married with John Jameson, that's J. Jonah Jameson's son. In the party scene, Peter tries to talk to Mary Jane, but Mary Jane is all mad at him. Not simply all pissed off, just very disappointed in Peter that he couldn't make it to her play in time. So what she does, she simply gets mad at Peter, and Peter tries to say, "I'm sorry." Mary Jane didn't want to hear his excuse. And after that, she kind of bullied and says, "You're nothing but an empty seat." And what's also messed up that he tries to get a drink. Every single time he tries to get a drink, someone takes it, and when he finally gets one, there's just nothing but an empty cup. And another riot going on that Harry gets all drunk. He drinks the whole bottle, realizing that he's still mad about Spider-Man, and out of all the anger and all the drink he's been taking, and he's so drunk, he takes out all the anger out of Peter, blaming him for not turning Spider-Man into the authorities, and just randomly slaps him in the face so many times. So this was not just Peter Parker's day, not at all. So out of all the blaming and out of all the disappointment that Peter ever did, so what happens is he begins to lose his power. Like he begins losing his ability to web shoot out of his wrist, even wall crawling. I mean, he wall crawls up like almost up to half of the building, but then he started like losing it. Like he slips down, but only for a quick second, and then another quick second later he like slides down, and due to all of his emotions, disappointment to others, and that's what's bringing him down. So what happens is he has to make a choice. So during the flashback scene, Uncle Ben reappears, but only just for one scene, that's it. Uncle Ben, he tries to like convince Peter Parker that he must accept this gift, like accept his responsibility, but Peter refuses. So he's like, Spider-Man no more. He decides to not be Spider-Man and throws away the costume into the trash can. So he goes back being normal, gets to class on time, gets to work on time, and also he goes to Mary Jane's play, which that's a big surprise. So after the play, Peter and Mary Jane, they finally got back talking to each other. Peter tries to convince her not to like marry this guy. Mary Jane just said, you know what, this is my choice, this is my life. At least he tried. Before she gets into the cab, she says to Peter, I'm getting married in a church. Like, wow, in a church? Like, what church? Which church? What's the name of the church? Now on to the villain named Doc Ock. His real name is Dr. Otto Octavius, a brilliant scientist and also working for Harry Osborn and Oscorp. Otto Octavius' character, which is played by Alfred Molina, he plays Otto Octavius / Doc Ock. He's a brilliant scientist, and he's not a very evil, like pure evil, like as Norman Osborn / the Green Goblin was in the first movie. But with his character, he's much more emotional, not too all evil. Like what his character was to bring him like all confused, but actually becoming a criminal. So what he made with these 4 tentacle arms, the smart ones, like attaches it to his spine and almost up to his like his membrane, like up to his lower back. So what happens is his experiments goes well till like everything like starts to like suck up. Like the tritium is like a magnet, like everything like takes into metal and everything goes all haywired. So his experiment goes wrong, his wife Rosie dies, and the electrocution knocks out cold. Spider-Man like unplugs the machine, explodes, but disappears like in a flash. That was like the most biggest effect ever. So what happens is like Ock goes in the hospital. He's out cold, but somehow what happens is the arms come back to life. And what the doctors do, they were trying to get the mechanical arm out of his body. The arms like start to like kill all the doctors, all the surgeons, and then he reawakens. So what his choice was, ran to the bank, steal all the money, so he created a bigger and better machine for his tritium. Now back to Peter Parker's character. In the scene where like the building is set on fire and Peter like decides to go in, tries to be the hero. He goes in there and saves the little girl's life. But by the time he gets out of there, one of the firefighters talks and says that there was somebody else in the building but didn't make it. That also makes Peter Parker's decision like really tougher now. Now he's like all confused and doesn't know what to do now in his life. So later on he goes into the cafe, meets up with Mary Jane. What happens is Peter Parker tells Mary Jane that he doesn't love her, but for her own safety in the own dangerous situation. So she believes him at first, but then she tells Peter to kiss her. She wants to know and just to be sure which kiss was. So when they try to kiss, somehow his spider sense started to come back, which means his powers are starting to return again. So then when the car like comes right at them, Peter like grabs Mary Jane, ducks, and makes this swerving spinning matrix when the car almost hit them. And then Doc Ock shows up and captures Mary Jane. Peter Parker gains his power back and goes after Doc Ock, and that's where they start battling. The battle scene between Doc Ock and Spider-Man were like so epic and so phenomenal. The first battle, which is the bank and the rooftop, well, not the rooftop, but at the building, especially during the train scene where they had this huge fight. And of course in the 2.1, the fight is like really long. Somehow one of the spider like hit Spider-Man's mask, and when he took it off just for a brief moment, you know, he couldn't just like pat it or like couldn't just like put it back on before the people see his true identity. Well, people don't know who Peter Parker is, but still, it bothered me just for a little bit, but nobody know who Peter Parker really was. So he like faints and almost fell, but all the people in the train like grabs him before he fell, picks him up, put him inside, and now they realize and discover like he was only like a kid. So the two boys show up and grab his mask, and they promise him that he won't tell who he really is. So he puts his mask back on. He's a little weak and tired from his battle between him and Ock and saving all the people and stopping the train. Ock finally shows up, knocks him out. Ock finally captures him, gives him to Harry Osborn. So Ock gets the tritium. Harry grabs the knife, and before he kills him, he takes off the mask and reveals Spider-Man is his own best friend. Surprise! Harry like gets all freaked out, all surprising, and realizing that his own best friend is Spider-Man. Peter finally breaks free, but it all now stands down to him for one last battle between Spidey and Ock. So Spidey finds Mary Jane, but then Ock finds Spidey. Spidey fights off with Ock, tries to deactivate the machine again, but this time it didn't turn off, it just kept on going. It's all like out of control. It's now unstable, sucking everything, all the people in New York. It almost sucked Mary Jane because she was all wrapped in chain. So again, he takes off the mask. So he tries to convince Ock to like save the city, tells him he has to give up the thing he wants the most. He convinced Ock, and doing the right thing, he had to make the sacrifice that he must do, and he was sunk underneath the water. Peter like saves Mary Jane, but Mary Jane gets all shocked and surprising, realizing now who Peter Parker really was. But Peter tries to tell Mary Jane that she cannot take the risk, she cannot be a part of his life, his own adventure life of being Spider-Man. Like she like holds on to one of his web, goes down and beats back with John Jameson. But then at the end, when he swings back and finally puts on the mask, I thought at first like, what? He's not gonna go out in New York maskless. He would not go without his mask, but he finally put it back on and goes back home as Spider-Man. But almost up to that very ending, Harry's like all now surprising and angry. He hears the voices, and of course, guess who's there? Norman Osborn, his dad, aka the Green Goblin. So Norman Osborn like returns, but only in he's like shown in the mirror, and he tells Harry that he's like really weak. He has to like stand up and man up, and to make Spider-Man pay. So what happens is that Harry like throws the knife at the mirror, but it went through that there was another entrance, another room. So now he knows the truth about Peter. He knows now the truth about his father, that he was the Green Goblin. He finds all the pumpkin bomb, the mask, and of course the glider, along with the serum. Now he takes the serum, and we're not too sure if he took the serum or not. But during the wedding scene, we realize, of course, that Harry wears a green bow tie, so much more concerned that he might become the next Green Goblin, which that'll be the third film that I'll be talking about later on soon. During the wedding scene, Mary Jane she comes to the conclusion that she decides to, you know what, the wedding's off. One of the bridesmaids gives him the note saying the wedding's off. Goes to see Peter and tells him that she wants to be a part of his life and she wants to take the risk. And Peter also takes to being as the superhero web-slinging Spider-Man, accept his responsibility and accept his great powers. So at the end, they are finally officially together. So after done talking about this film, and it was really interesting in talking about it, this film was really phenomenal, and it flowed. The story flowed. The movie, it flowed, showing how much of choices that all these characters had to make their choices. What were their destinies? They somehow did alter them, but then at the end, it's back to their reality rules. So just to rate this film, I have to give it a nothing out of 100, but give it a best 10 out of 10 that equals 100% movie. So this movie was epic, it was amazing, it was phenomenal. So the next time whenever I do another superhero movie review that I'll be talking about, which that'll be starting next week, is Iron Man. And this is P.M.R.Bonez88 signing off and saying peace!